Good afternoon. The formal sector of the economy has shed jobs in the second quarter when compared to the first quarter of this year. Data from Statistics South Africa shows employment decreased by nearly 120,000 jobs in the period between March and June. Most jobs were lost in community services, business services, construction and the manufacturing sectors. The second quarter of the year experienced challenges of the devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal and intense rolling blackouts. Job losses were recorded for both full-time and part-time employment. Full-time employment decreased by 16,000 in the second quarter, largely due to job losses in the business services, construction and community services sector, while part-time employment decreased by over 100,000 jobs due to those losses in community services and manufacturing as well as trade sectors. Basic salaries paid to employees increased and average monthly earnings showed a quarter-on-quarter increase of 3.7%. Let's get more on the story then. Xhanti Payi, who's an economist at Nascent's Advisory, joins me now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. So both full-time and total employment decreased in the second quarter. Talk us through what was driving that.
Look, I think there are two parts, and I think it's quite an interesting picture. There are two parts to it, as you've already spoken about it. This issue of social services. Now, we know what that is. It includes people who may work in their homes, and other some sort of professional services, and certainly, some of this work. So, and I think it shows really the kind of pressure that many consumers are under, and that is telling us something that is important about really the broader economy. And then, of course, you see the declines that you've seen in manufacturing. I think we should not be surprised, given some of the pressures. We know, of course, that interest rates have started to climb. So the financial conditions of manufacturers are probably quite tight. We know, of course, that during that same quarter, we saw a downscale in economic growth. And, of course, we've also seen, the disruptions in energy provision. And so these kinds of disruptions are always very difficult for these sectors. And of course, even construction, which really relies obviously on an economy that is starting to grow. So in order for you to hire people in the construction sector, you want to see that there's a growth in the economy, people are building more housing activity, more building activity. And of course, you need reliable energy in that. So all of these factors are important in telling us what is going on in the jobs market because of.
All right, we'll continue our discussion with Xhanti Payi. He is still here with us talking about those job losses. So, Xhanti, trade, manufacturing and mining recorded increases. Are those gains significant enough to celebrate?
They're not at all. I think because we should have expected those kinds of, much better and much more resilient gains there. We know that the mining sector should be in a boom as we understand it. Of course, we know the coal sector. We know that demand is starting to grow globally. So we should have been seeing more in terms of what we've seen in the manufacturing, in the mining sector. But I think in the trade sector, that is going to be under a lot of pressure. So that trade, that tourism, that is going to take us, that consumption is going to take a little bit more time to recover. But I guess we are seeing some encouraging signs of it.
And then how does this decrease in employment affect our economy and our prospects for growth and us on a day-to-day basis?
Look, I think that is, these numbers we are seeing is what people have already been talking about. I think that people have already been telling us that, their households are under a lot of pressure. We know that, we've already, as I said, we've already seen, of course, these numbers in terms of the economic activity in the economy, manufacturing. So what it is telling us is that we are still under a lot of pressure. But I think what it also confirms is the kind of pressure we are still to see going forward. Because, of course, we know, as I said, the economic conditions are still quite weak if we think about what is going to happen in terms of those increases in interest rates. So that borrowing or cost of money is going to be difficult for small businesses to be able to take on people. We know that households who would have been hiring people, whether it's domestic workers, it's people in various services, electricians, those people are not going to come on stream because, of course, households are under a lot of pressure because of inflation. They're under a lot of pressure because of rising interest rates. So those incomes are not enough to be able to hold out some of those services. So we are, this confirms some of the pressures that we are facing, and we're likely to continue to face in the medium to short term.
How will rolling blackouts that we're currently experiencing in South Africa affect, in particular, job prospects going forward?
No doubt, there is absolutely no doubt that this is going to show very, very negatively in terms of that. We saw, for example, some reports that have come out already, farmers saying, look, they are really, really concerned about these issues because, of course, irrigation systems are very much dependent on electricity and other farming activity. And remember, we are looking to agriculture to absorb a lot of people into the working sector. So that is a problem. We know, of course, small businesses also are struggling because many of them don't have generators. So they would have struggled to keep that. And then, of course, and very importantly, is that when people are actually spending today or investing today, they're investing for the future, they're looking ahead. And I think there's no doubt that a lot of people are looking ahead with a sense of gloominess because they're thinking, how am I actually going to run this business? Should I be hiring more people? I don't think at this environment of, of high interest rates, of high inflation, certainly of disruptive power is one place where you think you want to absorb people. So I suspect many people will be holding back and thinking, let's see whether or not things get better. Let's see how far these interest rates will rise. Let's see whether or not the electricity prices will be resolved. Let's see, the stability in terms of other prices, producer prices will also come down. And then I think only then you will see betterment of economic activity. So the outlook is not good at all.
Xhanti Payi, who's an economist at NASAMS Advisory, joining me there. Thanks so much for your time and insight into those job figures.